Hello and welcome to the Otaku Network podcast. My name is Steve.
And I'm David.
And we are into week 8 of the 2024 fall anime season. So before we get into it, I'd just like to say thank you for checking out the podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment letting us know what shows you're enjoying this season. This week's episode of Tsuma Shogakusei ni Naru picks up a little bit after last week's episode. Last week's episode ended with the Nijimas being approached by a police officer after the girl that has Takae's memories freaked out and appears to have lost her memories of Takae. That gets resolved pretty quickly behind the scenes, and we start the episode with everybody leaving the police station after Marika's mother, Chika, shows up to kind of smooth things over as to why there's a couple of strangers with her daughter who's hyperventilating and freaking out because of stranger danger. Both families go their separate ways, and Chika gets in contact with Keisuke to let him know that her daughter Marika pretty much has no memories of Takae at all. Chika says that she'll keep in contact with them in case there's any other developments and to figure out where to go from here. The thing that becomes apparent, though, is Marika has no memories of the past year, which means the memories of Takae superseded Marika's. Chika decides that she needs to keep her daughter from school for a little bit while she kind of figures this out. She tells the administrators that it's a case of amnesia and then kind of breaks down and admits to her less than stellar parenting abilities.
Less than parental level of abilities.
Yeah. The staff kind of consoles her and is like, don't worry about it. We'll all work through this together. She then comes up with the idea to still involve the Nijimas in Marika's life for the time being in seeing an opportunity to use them as babysitters of sorts while she's getting adjusted to apparently a new job that she has.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely eagerly agree to it and have to begin interacting with Marika as if it was not previously the vessel of their reincarnated loved one. So Keisuke is impacted pretty heavily by this because now he's theoretically lost his wife twice. So there's a scene of Keisuke trying to seek solace at his family's grave when a monk comes to him trying to offer to help him. So Keisuke takes the opportunity and starts to talk about what the past year has been like in this confusingly unnatural situation after the monk tells him that he's open to listening to somebody who needs help. We cut away from this grief counseling to an episode where Marika ends up at the Nijima's house instead of being tutored at her own house. And she notices the shrine of sorts that they've built around the memory of Takae, including the pledge that they had signed in the evening of the fireworks. And it triggers something in Marika, and all of Takae's memories come flooding back. And then we cut back to the continued conversation between Keisuke and the monk. And the monk tells him an alternative concept of what he thinks is happening instead of this being a reincarnation. He sees this as a possession of sorts by Takae, who is overriding Marika's soul. With the common trope of unfinished business, the dead kind of linger. So at the end of the episode, we're left with Takae back in Marika's body and Keisuke both struggling with the idea that the second chance at connection between these two lovers is causing the removal of another woman's daughter from her life in reality. And we leave with Marika, or with Takae in Marika's body, profusely apologizing to Chika because she's realizing herself what's going on. And I think she's come to the point where she knows that this shouldn't be happening with this replacement. And Keisuke is struggling with his own guilt over the situation as well. And I think this is going to signal kind of our final arc, our apotheosis of the story, where Keisuke needs to come to terms with the loss that he's dealt with his wife dying and truly move on from it. And Takae needs to know that he can move on. And then we'll probably get, the It's a Wonderful Life kind of ending where the problem's been solved, everything can go back to normal, and then we'll just have these pangs of regret and memories of what we had momentarily that was strange. Something occurred to me in this episode when they kind of put the timeline into clearer perspective about what's been going on. I wonder if trauma relating to the divorce of Marika's parents were what helped trigger the arrival of Takae's memories.
Maybe. like levels of neglect and abuse kind of let her become susceptible to possession from Takae's spirit. Takae's memories didn't appear in Marika until
after the divorce.
Right, but she was also walking past Najima residence.
But she had the memories for a while before then, but they were kind of falling into place for her. And she decided that one day that she's going to act on what's been happening inside of her head.
We'll probably get an answer some way at some point through this.
Maybe we could. We didn't get the dramatic...
They copped out.
We didn't get the dramatic exit to resolve the police situation, but honestly, the way that it was handled makes sense.
They copped out.
I don't like the spirituality aspect that has been laid heavily into this episode, but I get it. It fits. It makes sense. I just don't. I didn't like it. But that's just me.
Buddhism.
No, the whole idea of a soul and a spirit. But I mean, you've got to have some kind of that aspect if you're going to make something like this happen, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the whole premise, I guess. There has to be this continuation of self after death.
Sure.
For this to be feasible.
Sure. It doesn't necessarily have to be a spirit though, or a soul. You can always just leave it as a MacGuffin. We don't need to get into the weeds of the technicalities of the story because I think that's missing the focus of what the story is supposed to do.
But like every culture has an idea of
that.
a spirit or a soul.
I understand that.
So like you're never going to avoid that. You're never going to avoid that.
Like I said, we didn't need to...
Welcome to a nation that has Shintoism and Buddhism.
Yeah.
Two very heavy spiritual...
Well, Japan is a modern-day animist society based with the Shinto beliefs. Everything is inhibited with spirits and deities. Yes, right. No, I'm well aware of that.
Welcome to Japanese culture, Steve.
No.
I'm surprised it's your first trip around.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I think what I'm trying to say is that I don't feel the story really needed to explain the concept of the MacGuffin of sorts. Not really a MacGuffin, but the manga A Distant Neighborhood is a time travel story of sorts. But it never bothers to explain or question the mechanism for the time travel because that's irrelevant to the story. So I feel that in TsumaSho, the mechanism for the reincarnation is not relevant enough to the purpose of the story. But with the context of how we're now presenting this, what appears to be moving into the final arc of the conflict of the two essences fighting for the same body, it does make sense. I'm not as pleased with that idea, but I like the way we're moving into this possible conclusion.
Oh, I knew this was coming from like a mile away.
What, the dueling spirit thing?
I had a feeling that it was going to be that some form of resolution of either Marika was going to come back and just completely replace Takae.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that this was not permanent.
No, and we had speculated on that earlier on, that there will probably be a resolution where the Takae memories just go away.
Right, because Marika needs to be able to live her own life. I do really think that the resolution of this is going to be Keisuke moving on.
Oh, it has to.
Be it with Moria or just accepting the fact that his wife is gone.
Yeah, no, it has to be. And they're both in that position now, Takae and Keisuke, that this is the important thing. They both realize that they need to give Marika back her life. Yeah. That they need to give Chika back her daughter.
I think the person that's going to have the hardest time accepting that is probably going to be Mai.
I don't know.
Because Keisuke was sad, like depressed, but he seemed more receptive of what Takae had said about like making sure that they still have dinner together. Yeah. And he was still communicating with his daughter, and they were cooking food and not just buying food. So I feel like he learned a little bit. Like he hasn't fully accepted that she's gone, but he didn't have the outburst Mai did when Chika was talking to the two of them. Because if you remember when they're talking, Mai has an outburst about how her mom, like something about her mom. And I really think it's not just going to be Keisuke, but also Mai accepting that.
Yeah. Yeah, we do need to have Mai in the
Takae
equation too, because it's part of her problem as well, obviously.
Right. Like she also cannot give up her mother.
Well, Mai has to deal with that. I think we can agree that a lot of that is Keisuke's fault
Right.
with how he didn't deal with it in the first place 11 years prior.
Right.
It was a good episode. I'm excited for, I think we have 4 more episodes left. So I don't know, it might be prematurely thinking that we're moving into our final arc, but I can see the path forward, and I like the groundwork they're laying for that path.
Yeah, me too. I think this is going to be I
set-
don't want to jinx it. Let's not say what we think it's going to be. Because I'm afraid that we're going to make it bad by speaking it into existence.
What, by saying it's going to be good?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be good.
Every time we've said it's going to be good, the ending's kind of bad.
The series has been quite well so far.
Right. But like, this week we continue where we left off with the pro-Emperor samurai facing down Neo and Saito. Basically giving them the spiel about how the Shogun doesn't know what he's doing. He's letting all these foreigners in, comparing it to what happened in China with the Opium Wars, and just reading them the fucking riot act about how the Shogun is terrible, how they should just switch to just the Emperor, and that the Shogun doesn't know what he's doing, and just soapboxing for probably at least half the episode.
He was espousing his idealist philosophies.
Then we find Neo driven to fight him with his wooden sword. Which I was like, that's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if that pays out. And as he's moving over, he sees that there is another man behind Saito who like shushes him. And then he's like, who the fuck is this? Saito starts battling this guy. The other, we're just going to call him nationalist.
The idealist.
Starts drowning Neo.
Yeah, he's like baptizing him in the river.
I'm like, Jesus, fuck, that's dark. As Neo is about to drown, Okita shows up, basically picks him up out of the water, sets him down. Taro shows up, is like, I'm gonna kill you, you fucking bastard, for drowning my friend. And then he wakes up and Taro's like, you're supposed to be dead. Supposed to be dead to Neo. And then Okita pulls the you're already dead meme. Cuts dude so bad, he wished he didn't cut him so bad. He has a flashback about how he was supposed to be this idealist who fought for the greater good.
Yeah.
And then dies. Then the shinobi is like, oh fuck, you just killed my friend. And then shurikens.
Escape protocol.
Shurikens Okita to the thing. It's like, you're a fucking ninja? And then Saito's like, he's a fucking ninja.
Okita got really excited. He was like, that's badass.
I know.
And then he like ninja'd away.
Yeah, he was like, that's really cool that you're a ninja. And then he chases him, but the ninja escapes. We find out through Hijikata that Okita came back, carried Neo back, and then all of the Mibu went out to go hunt down these 4 other killers of the daimyo's samurai. Neo requests a sword, which Hijikata had apparently gone out and bought him a sword.
Yeah, like he just knew. He's like, well, in hindsight, it does make sense when you think about it. We're like, oh, this guy that I'm kind of looking for almost got murdered, and I've been sending him out into the streets with a wooden sword.
Yeah, and then Hijikata's like, we're gonna go pay that little blonde-haired kid a visit, and then episode end.
Well, Neo was also like, I'm gonna still use the wooden sword for defense.
Yeah.
And the real sword is just a set piece.
That's gonna last long.
No. He has his convictions and his ideals like a good shonen protagonist.
But he didn't get better at using a sword.
No, but we've shonen the shit out of it in the beginning by having that recap. The recap was not unnecessary. I think it did fit in this circumstance because this is the first time we've had an episode that was a continuation of events from a previous episode.
Right.
So it makes sense.
Right.
The episode wasn't bad, but yeah, it really just dealt with this conflict and this exposition of opposing ideals, which I think though
it really chose to just like soapbox the anti-shogunate stance of what's eventually going to become the Boshin War.
Well, so I think Neo missed it because Neo is now indoctrinated into his own ideology of the Mibu, and the other gentleman, his ideology is just the other side. So now at this point, Neo is just like, I don't care. You're against us. You're my enemy. But both of them are not wrong.
Right.
But Neo does not appear to have grasped that, or no longer grasps that. He grasped that 2 episodes prior, but in this instance, out the fucking door. And I think that's a detriment to his character but makes sense with him being an impressionable 13-year-old.
And he almost got murdered by this guy, to be fair.
But he was already convinced that this guy, regardless of what this guy says, he's my enemy before he was being baptized.
Fair, but his life was also being threatened.
Yeah.
You very quickly create some very aggressive stances on things when your life is in danger.
That's fair. But Neo's life has been in danger before. And
I don't know to this extent, though.
There was the one murderer that was chasing him down that he saved that little girl from.
Fair, but that guy didn't have, ideals.
Previous to that was the incident where they had found those guys who left that dead monk at the bridge. And in that incident, even though Neo's life wasn't necessarily in danger, there was combat, he could recognize the varying ideals. Because that's when he had the conversation with Hijikata.
Fair. But
I think this episode just shows that now he's definitely fully drunk the Kool-Aid of the Mibu's mission.
The dick slappingness of them.
Because both sides are not wrong.
What do you mean? Let's go Shogunate.
No. They're both sides are not wrong. I'm gonna spoil something for you. But the Shogun loses.
The Shogun loses.
The Shogun
I know.
loses.
I fucking know. What? You're telling me there's no Shogun in Japan right now? Talking to the guy that loves World War II history.
Anyways, it wasn't a bad episode. It was fine. The Neo's ideology, though, at the end of it with the book with the wooden sword was a little much. You know what though? I'll take his. Well, I think it just seals this as the guilt-free replacement for Rurouni Kenshin. Because, as far as I know, the original author of the Wolves of Mibu doesn't have a criminal conviction for less than savory behavior.
Yeah.
So we know next episode should be interesting as they visit the kid.
Yeah.
The son of the merchant.
Or they're gonna fucking off that kid.
I think they pretty much have come to the conclusion that the kid set this up.
Yeah.
So
I think they're gonna kill a kid.
Oh, I don't know if they're necessarily going to kill the kid.
They're going to kill a kid.
No.
Taking bets now.
That kid's going to learn that he's not as crafty as he thinks he is, though. So this week in Orb picks up, as is with all the other shows, pretty much right after the previous episode that left off, where we pick up with Yolenta being confronted by Atsi and Badeni about the formula that she solved, that they put up. Recognizing that she can't admit to having done so as a woman, she says that it was the person she works for that solved it. They press her to have them meet her master so they can discuss with him, but she tries to become evasive, and Badeni pretty much figures out by the way she's being slippery that she's the one who did the work. So he kind of finagles the conversation to continue talking with her. Badeni is trying to confirm for himself that she's the one who solved the problem by leading her with specific questions and judging her responses based upon his questions. They're going back and forth and they're discussing different heretical concepts from the past and debating about the merits of them. The inherent issues of those concepts in relation to the church's message of how the universe operates. Badeni keeps pushing her to the point where he finally gets her to admit that she's the one who solved the equation. The conversation leads to him requesting she give him access to the papers that she's been using, at which point she tells her about the Count who runs the research facility that she apprentices at. I forget his name.
Piest.
Count Piest. Badeni knows this name, recognizes him as a staunch, Earth-centric proponent who has devoted the past 50 years of his life to this philosophy. They convince him that they should still meet him because even though he's set in his ways, he's still somebody that's searching for truth because he doesn't know if he's found the complete truth yet. So they go and visit the elder gentleman who is really on his deathbed, who prior in the episode had confronted Yolenta and in a roundabout way presented himself as an ally to her efforts in letting her know that he understands that the paper that was brought to him by the person she works with was actually done by her, and he implores her to bring him something else again that is of use to him. He wants to get it from her instead of through somebody using her to further himself. So she feels that he is really her ally. They meet with him. He's enraged by the idea and pretty much shoos them away, but then begins to contemplate. And the rest of the final 5 minutes or so of the episode is a look back at his formative years when he was kicked out of his family by his father due to his passion with astronomy, where a distant relative who is also a man of science brought him under his wing and pretty much led him down the path that he's at now. There was not a lot of ground covered with this in this episode because it was primarily two complex discussions in two different situations and then a little bit of background for this count. But hey, another episode, somebody hasn't died for the sin of heliocentrism.
Death count's getting kind of high.
It was getting a little high, yeah. Definitely a setup episode. Absolutely a setup episode. Well, even the previous episode was set up as well. So now we're culminating into this idea of...
We should put a counter up for episodes without...
I think we're at 3 right now. I don't know where this is going to go, though. This is interesting. I like it.
It is. It's got us on the edge of our seat.
Yeah. This was probably the episode with the highest amount of philosophical debate.
Oh, yeah. This was a #thick episode. It was full of just... I want to be bold, Steve.
Be bold, David.
Anime of the year.
Anime of the year.
Like I am. Anime of the year.
It's really good. The writing's really good.
Writing's really good. Animation's fun.
The characters are phenomenal.
The characters are also kind of relatable, too.
I love the depth of Badeni's persona.
Yep.
Every time we've seen him has been interacting either in his past with authority figures he doesn't have respect for, or Otzi, who he doesn't have respect for. And he's conceited, arrogant, and forceful.
He's a little bitch.
And the absolute shift in his approach to dealing with Yolenta was phenomenal in how he was... I don't know how to describe it.
He's a little bitch, and I love him.
When he was skillfully picking at Yolenta's obfuscation, he always presented himself in a trustworthy manner.
Approachable, trustworthy.
Yeah. He was like, his tone, his mannerism, his body language was all trying to get her to trust him, which we know you can't trust him because he's so, well, I don't know if that's necessarily the right thing to say about him. He is definitely somebody who only has his own interests in mind. And now we've seen at this point...
He is so far up his own ass, it's ridiculous.
He fully understands that there is nothing he won't do to get to his goals.
He's so far up his own ass, it's ridiculous.
We saw that in his history and how he lost his eye.
Yeah.
He was willing to face certain blindness just to glean a minute level of forbidden information.
Yeah.
So we know he will go to any length, but he is so crafty at how he gets his information. I really like his character. He recognizes his own limitations and is willing to admit those limitations and just won't let them stop him. The whole treaty thing. He was like, look, I can't solve this. We're going to get some dumbass to solve it for us because it doesn't matter in the end. He's a great character.
He's the master manipulator.
He's so good. Oh, it's going to be guaranteed Badeni and Yolenta's dad will butt heads.
No shit.
And that's going to be great because he's a manipulator too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking of...
I thought it was going to happen this episode when they're like, can you take us somewhere private? I'm like, oh God, they're going to take her to her home. Does Nowak know what Otzi looks like? Or was he wearing his mask when they fought? He will absolutely recognize his voice though, because Nowak's not an idiot.
Yeah.
And he does have a fine attention to detail. Oh, I can't wait for Nowak to show back up and be in proximity to these two.
I know.
Overall, the week was pretty good. While it was disappointing that TsumaSho decided to shortcut the issue with the police officer.
Lazy writing.
it gave us a lot of room to show us probably what the final stretch of the show was going to deal with.
Moving on. Like we've been telling KSK since the beginning. Move on. If anybody in the show is, I think it's him.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think Mai is still going to be resistant at this point. KSK, through the guidance of the monk, has definitely done some reflection and some contemplating on the situation.
I think he's realizing that as the older adult, he needs to set the better example.
I think he's coming to terms with the idea that his happiness is not worth the price of destroying another life.
Good on him.
Blue Miburo, it didn't really tell a lot of story. It handled it relatively well. I did enjoy the little background exposition they did on the guy before he got offed by Okita.
Yeah. Well, as he got offed by Okita.
Yeah, while his father was passing on the inheritance of the family sword to him, and it's like, serve
the greater good.
He wasn't a bad guy. He was just the opponent, which is good to see in a shonen, that we do not necessarily have that black and white good versus evil thing, which is kind of what is causing me problems with Neo being suddenly falling into that black and white mentality of us versus them.
I mean, war's got to happen somehow.
It's true.
There's lots of us versus them when war happens.
Yeah.
There is only really black and white during war.
No.
I mean, for the combatants, there is only black and white.
No, I don't think so. Once you get beyond the
in the heat of the moment,
when you get beyond the survival instinct and you reflect upon the concept of the conflict, there is more room for gray areas.
Right. But we're talking about this is after the conflict's happened. The conflict hasn't even happened yet. The Boshin War hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, but the conflict is here already. It's just not all out.
But it's going to continue to culminate.
Sure.
That's what creates the black and white mentality of the soldiers and the combatants in a conflict. True. Is that build up to the conflict. But creating that us versus them.
But so far in the series, up until this point, there has been that towing the line and recognizing that both sides aren't wrong.
Right. But what I'm trying to say is I think the show is trying to show this like build up of, sure, it may not start out as black and white right away, but as tensions build and eventually boils over into a conflict, more and more people see it as this black and white us versus them.
Military philosophy aside, Orb continues to be the best show.
Yes.
The writing and the characterization.
They make me feel things.
It'd be interesting to see what they're able to accomplish before this old aristocrat kicks the bucket from, I don't know, emphysema or something. Who knows? Gout.
I know, he's fucking the verge of dying.
On his deathbed.
He's one bad sneeze
away
from fucking just...
Yeah. Anything else?
No, not really. It's these shows continue to deliver quality entertainment.
Yep.
I think all three of them do.
Yeah.
I'm a little upset at TsumaSho's cop out.
With the cops?
Yeah. Word choice.
I think it left room for better narrative though.
Maybe. But no. Great animes.
Yep.
We did good picking our shows this season.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment. Let us know what your thoughts are on where these shows are if you're watching these, or what shows you're watching that you enjoy. Let's see, Don to Don, Blue Box. What are the other big shows for the season?
Or even if you're not watching a show from this season, if you're just picking up a show that it's been on your watch list for a while.
All right. Well, also don't forget our weekly Ranma show that comes out on Fridays. And thanks again, and we will see you guys next time.